Thank you so much for inviting me here, and great to see some familiar faces, but a lot of new faces, which is fantastic. Please do catch up with me during the day if you want to have a chat. I'd love to learn from what you guys are doing up here, or maybe somewhere else nationally if you've come from far. So yes, my name's Hussain. I'm a GP by trade. I'm based down in the West Midlands, sort of Coventry and Leamington Spa kind of area. And I just want to tell you a little bit about how I got into physical activity in terms of its space within healthcare, as I think the story may resonate with a lot of you, and it may also resonate with the people that you work and try to serve. So, to start off with, I'm going to explain where it began for me, then how it translated into my professional work, and finally where we're going forward in the future. Now, if I think about where I was about 10, 12 years ago, it really is a world away from where I am now, thank God. I was in a hospital bed and had just finished an ultrasound scan of my liver, where the sonographer took a pause and then just looked at me and said, "You've got one of the fattest livers I've ever seen." And, it wasn't the league table I wanted to be at the top of. At the time, I was a medical student, and it suddenly made me realise, I'll be honest, I didn't even fully appreciate consciously that I'd gained a lot of weight during university. A number of reasons were causing that. It was really stressful. I was trying to get through the exams. My parents were going through a divorce. There was all sorts of things that were going on, which I was leading a lifestyle that just helped me to survive. I was doing those things because it made the day that bit easier. And it was, in a way, the wake-up call that I needed to start to do something with my life. But for a few years after that, I didn't make any actual persistent progress. I kept losing a bit of weight and gaining it, and losing it and gaining it. All because what I was trying to achieve was just to bring down the numbers on the scale, but it really wasn't what I wanted. It wasn't what I wanted enough to have the willpower to keep going. But then as soon as I was highlighted to chasing the goals based along what I actually wanted to achieve, which was feeling more energetic, being more confident, feeling less anxious, and trying to achieve those goals, did it enable me to improve my health. And I have to be really, really grateful for my wife, who supported me massively along that journey. And she got me to write down all the different goals that I wanted to do and how I wanted to feel. And then we thought, okay, what can we do to try to achieve that? How can we get to a point where you feel a bit more confident? How do you get to a point where your anxiety isn't so high? And so we then put out lots of different ideas of how to achieve that. And one of them was, let's try and be a bit more active. Not to be active to compete with other people, because up until that point during school, the reason I was really put off physical activity and didn't do any was because I was so bad at it. My parents had no real focus on physical activity. I'm from a Middle Eastern background, and really there was only 3 rules that I could do. I could either be a doctor, a lawyer, an engineer, or not part of the family, essentially. And so movement just wasn't included as something to be promoted. And so, when I started to move instead for the joy of it, it completely changed things for me. And I attended my local park run, and that really started things, because at park run, I realised it was a place where I could meet up with friends, where I could go there for a walk, where I could volunteer, where I could slowly use physical activity, not to compete with other people, but to just have fun and to see the benefits. First, it was really difficult, I'm not going to lie. When I did my first park run, the first 400 metres, I actually went for it, and I was like, man, I'm amazing. Do you know what I mean? I'm flying, this is easy, what is everyone talking about? And then the rest of the 4,600 metres to get to the end was absolute hell and agony. I, in fact, vomited at kilometre 2, and a patient that knew me stopped by and said, "Dr. Hussain, are you okay?" I was like, "Yeah, it's fine. Don't worry about me." And when I look back now at that first park run and where we've gone now, it's massive. But I started bringing in other forms of activity, whether it be swimming, cycling, strength training, those kind of elements, they slowly came in. And I think something that we're going to be touching on later is physical literacy. And I think that's so important because before that I had no real literacy to take part in physical activity. So whenever I tried it, I always failed because I didn't really know how to do it and what it meant to me and what kind of goals I was trying to achieve. As soon as I developed that in a particular discipline, I could translate it across to other movements where I wouldn't feel nervous about taking on something new. And so I was like, okay, how do I take this personal journey and bring it into my professional life? Because up until that point, I never really used lifestyle, whether it be physical activity, nutrition, better sleep, etc., with my patients. And I'd seen the massive effect that it had on my own health. You know, when I saw the doctor after having that scan and asked him, okay, what can I do to reverse this, what's called non-alcoholic fatty liver disease? How can I prevent it from becoming cirrhotic? And he goes, well, this is just one of those things. We just have to wait for it to get worse, and potentially later on we can think about liver transplant, etc., etc. No one ever mentioned, why don't you try and get a bit more active? Why don't you think about looking at what you eat? Why don't you try to improve your sleep? All these things which now, looking back at it, and have reversed that condition, these are the things that should be fundamental. We should be encouraging and supporting. I think that's the key, supporting patients to utilise that. So I was like, how can I bring it in? So to start off with, at my practice, I brought in a fitness club, okay? It was initially just at the practice, and then it spread across the primary care network. So now, primary care network, for those of you that don't know, it's like a collection of GP practices in a local area that work together. Throughout England, there is a number of PCNs, and outside of England, in Wales and Scotland, they're called clusters. And we set it up, and it started off with very small, humble beginnings. I think on the first event we ever did, we had 3 patients turn up out of a cohort. We have 85,000 patients that we support. But then with persistent work and working with our patient practice groups to try to build something from the base up, they're really well attended now. We have a number of groups, whether that be run groups, walk groups, swim groups, Nordic walking, spinning, dancing. And this is where we've collaborated with the physical activity sector in our area to help us deliver these sessions. And I think what's so good about this group is that it's got a whole range of people with various different long-term conditions, different ages, different ethnic backgrounds, different interests. And I think what's beautiful is that together they learn from each other. There are some patients that have challenges that are shared, while others are at a different point in their health journey. Can be very inspiring for someone else that, for example, wants to reverse their type 2 diabetes, meeting someone like John, who has managed to do that through the groups that we run. This kind of patient-led, patient-supported approach is often what they connect to much more than just in a consultation room being given advice. And so we decided to run a number of service evaluations of the groups that we run. So here's an example from the run group that we do, which has got a mental health focus. So Run Talk Run, which has been last year, it's brought into the family as Sport in Mind. I don't know if you've heard of that charity before. But these are sessions where we form small groups, run together, and be able to have open and honest conversations about things that are maybe upsetting you or stressing you out. And that kind of support has been really impactful. We've seen that in the research that we've conducted. And I think what's really important is when we think about how we deliver lifestyle medicine, we realise that when we are talking from healthcare, often we lack a lot of the expertise and the knowledge in terms of the delivery. And when we think of a 12-week, for example, GP exercise program, yes, that's great. They often have the knowledge in terms of the delivery, but the connection between the two is lost. And so patients get sort of sent to a certain place, they have the intervention, but over 12 weeks we know that's not the solution. This is a lifelong approach. And if they're not connected up, then where's the continued support going through? So what we did is we brought all our physical activity providers, including those on a exercise referral program, and we made them essentially part of the team. We give them the same t-shirts that we do, so they wear Leamington PCN Fitness Club t-shirts. So when you're speaking to these individuals, it feels like you're speaking to a member within the healthcare team. And that keeps that continuity up, and it's really, really important. And just to give you a bit of an overview, a very short overview of what we do at our primary care network, and for those of you that kind of come to the afternoon workshop, I'll be going to this in more detail. I'm just going to show you a short video which kind of outlines the services that we provide through the primary care network. The London Primary Care Network are really proud to have a wide array of options to support your health. Really proud to have a wide array of options to support your health and well-being, including the group lifestyle clinics where we discuss topics like nutrition, physical activity and behaviour change to help you achieve your goals. We also host a number of free physical activity sessions with trained specialists, including our Walk Talk Walk, where we connect with nature, each other, and have a bit of fun at the same time. And our Run. It's open for all abilities. It's called Run Talk Run. It's a place where we can connect with each other and be able to share the beauty of movement. If running isn't your thing, then, well, maybe swimming is. And accessing the water at our local leisure centre, New Bold Leisure Centre, with our fantastic swims, which run on a Monday and Friday once a month. It's there for those with long-term health conditions, and it's to support you into activity. Our staff will be present there to help you on the journey and ensure you have a good swim. I think that's a really good example of collaborative working. For that swim to take place, it involved Swim England support, Everyone Active, who were the leisure provider for Newport Common Leisure Centre, and Mental Health Swims, who provided the training to both Everyone Active staff and the healthcare staff at my PCN. And what we have at those sessions, we have supporting the 12 patients per session that we run twice a week. We have one healthcare professional who's done the Mental Health Swims training, and one activity professional from the leisure centre. So again, showing that it's not about us just delivering patients to their door and walking away. It's about how can we continue that process. Because then once they've completed those sessions at the swim, they get 12 weeks for free, and then beyond that they can get a social prescribing membership. But they can continue having those conversations and journeys, and it's all connected through with the healthcare provider. Just an overview of the structure in terms of how we access the patients. We do a number of population searches to try to get into the communities within our area that often have the least opportunities to access physical activity in an affordable and effective way for them. And then we utilise different roles within healthcare, including dietitians, social prescribers, and health and well-being coaches, because it's not just about providing the space, but we need to support the patient along that journey in terms of the behaviour change required to take this on and maintain it. And for me, for myself, I think the key thing that I found was that I formed a new identity in the change that I want to do. Before, even the thought of me running for the bus would be laughable, but now, after years of just continually doing tiny little things, the very thing that I was scared about doing, which was competing and being rubbish compared to everyone else, is the very thing that I end up doing now. And so I compete on an international level for Team GP in long distance triathlon. And if you even thought of that, and my friends often tell me, what exactly happened? Where's the Hussain that was always, the goal would be right in front of him and he would kick it there. Where did he go? And I think that's just telling that never, often as individuals, and even when we look at someone else, we assume that someone's not very good at something, but that may be that they haven't had it in an accessible way before. So when we say, I'm not a sporty person, actually that's unlikely. Physiologically, most of us can be a sporty person in the way that means to us. So I think it's sometimes about believing beyond that. And in terms of what we want to do in the future at the Royal College of GPs and the team that I lead there in lifestyle and physical activity, we really want to see policy change so that when we think about how we support our patients, lifestyle, including physical activity, is the core of what we do, and everything else is an add-on. Because at the end of the day, this is the bedrock. This is where good health is made. And so we want to try to work with more of the sectors that are involved in the different pillars of lifestyle medicine, including physical activity, so that we can deliver that for our patients. Because I think over the last 50 years in healthcare, in particular primary care, we've got a little bit lost in terms of trying to find what truly means good health for our patients. So Just a last bit, I'm just going to show you a patient of mine, Darren, and just an example of kind of how he's used these kind of groups to better his health. When I first met Darren, he was struggling to keep even a gentle pace. He was getting quite breathless. That was a combination of course, his baseline fitness, but also the fact that he was recently out of hospital suffering with a respiratory infection with COVID.
At the end of February 21, I ended up in intensive care for 4 or 5 days, put me in an induced coma for 15 days, and then following discharge, I had 2 readmissions for various infections. Immediately post-recovery, I had real problems with my leg function. I also had breathing issues, I was very short of breath, and then to try and address that, I started swimming.
Being able to see Darren swim in the flesh, it's not something that most healthcare professionals will ever get the privilege of doing, because as he continued to swim, you could see visibly how different he was. He was fitter, he looked younger, he looked stronger, and also more confident as well. Encouraging them and supporting them on that journey can be far more powerful than a number of the other interventions that we do. Darren is the reason why we've got to do work like this. And actually, Darren's incredible. He moved up from Leamington to Wakefield, which is I think just south of Leeds, and he didn't even tell us. He was still coming to these groups and driving all the way down and coming all the way back up because he didn't want to lose what it was giving him. And I think it's just so telling that he went from someone that couldn't engage with physical activity before, but then when he found a way that he could do that, and for him it was just being able to swim at the leisure centre with other people to break down his barriers, because he found it hard just going through the doors. He said he'd get anxious, he didn't know where he needed to go, he didn't know what equipment he needed, and he knew that that was silly, but it was just enough to mean that he would just say, oh, I'll do it next week. I'll sort that out next week. I don't know what the membership's like, I'm getting confused, etc. But us being able to just simplify that process and allow him to gain that knowledge and experience together was enough to get him swimming. And he swims now 4 times a week regularly, and he's brilliant, absolutely brilliant. So that's my summary. I think what's really important is that we encourage patients to believe in themselves. I think that's the key element when it comes to supporting them to make these changes. And it needs to be guided based on how they want to do it, not based on what we think is best. And definitely as healthcare professionals, we're not great at that. Often we've done a lot of training, we think, oh, this is the best method to do it. But at the end of the day, we need to guide people along what they feel is best and give them that support and that guidance to the right direction rather than instruction. So, thank you so much. I hope that was useful, and please, do catch me during the day and share any insights from yourself. At the College and the British Society of Lifestyle Medicine, we have a podcast if you want to find that useful for yourself, where we share kind of where healthcare is going in the physical activity sector. And if there's something you want to share with healthcare professionals, let us know, and we can get you on the podcast and share that with our membership. All right, thank you so much, and hope you have a really good day.